after that I copped a 6. How you think I got the art displayed on dinner plates? First course was from the Finger Lakes. Last course, cinnamon ginger cake. She gave me head during the Laker game. I got a tatted.
Hey, what's up, guys? Full Heel Podcast coming at you again with another episode, another results show for this past weekend. This past weekend was International Fight Week. For those of you guys that missed it, International Fight Week is pretty much they have the TUF Finale and they have a big pay-per-view. They've been doing it for, I'm not sure exactly how many years, like 4 years now, where they kind of make a big deal about this weekend. And, yeah, they try to put on badass cards. And they try to do that this weekend. And they did. They had some awesome fights. Like I said, Friday was the TUF Finale. We had Isreal Adesanya taking on Brad Tavares in a very exciting fight. Very telling fight for the future of these young guys as well. And we also had Michael Trezano versus Joe Giannetti. These were the guys that advanced to the finale of the show. I'm not exactly sure what weight division these guys were in. Let's see if this says... No, it's not on the live stats either. No, I'm not exactly sure what weight... Because I didn't watch the season. I don't like watching the TUF season. Which there's going to be one last season. It's going to be Robert Whittaker coaching against Kevin Gastelum, which eventually they'll wind up facing each other in the finale. And that's going to be a badass fight. I got to see Robert Whittaker live here at 225 at the United Center, UFC 225. It was pretty awesome. But we also had Jay Cusinello versus Brad Katona. Those guys were also winners on the TUF show. So they had two sets of winners, and those two guys are the ones that advanced. We also had Alex Caceres versus Martin Bravo. Martin Bravo being, I think he won. I don't know if it was the Latin America or if it was the Mexico TUF, but he won. He won one of them. And he took on Alex Caceres, veteran Alex Caceres in the UFC, which also was a part of the TUF show at one point. We also had Roxanne Modafferi versus Barb Hanchak. And then Alessio Di Sirico versus Julian Marquez, the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was a good fight. Montana De La Rosa. Well, I guess I should just get into the card. But I'm also going to break down UFC 226 right after the TUF finale. So I guess we should just get into it. So we had in the main event, it was Brad Tavares versus Isreal Adesanya. Brad Tavares being a veteran of the sport, facing not the who's who, but he's faced some pretty good names and beaten them. I think the only people that have beaten him have been Tim Bosch. Let's see who else. Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero. So he's only lost to high-level names. He's beaten Jotko. He's beaten Talis Ladies. He's beaten Elias Theodoro, Caio Magalhães, Nate Marquardt, Lorenz Larkin. You know, he does have some names on his resume of good people that he's taken out at 185. So this was going to be a tough fight for the style bender, Isreal Adesanya. Isreal Adesanya is a kickboxer. I think he's 74-5 in his kickboxing career. Transitioned into the UFC. I don't think his first fights were in the UFC. Let me check real quick his record, because I think he jumped from kickboxing to MMA. Yeah, he only has 3 fights in the UFC. I don't think he's 3-0 only. Is he? No, he's 14-0. Yeah, so he's only had 3 fights in the UFC. I'm not exactly sure what promotion they picked him up from, but He was a glory kickboxer, so he had a tough task ahead of him in Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares being a tough and gritty fighter. He's just pressure, comes forward nonstop. He won't stop attacking, and he usually grinds you against the cage, tries to get the takedown and ground and pound. But this wasn't the case today, not because that wasn't his game plan, but because he wasn't able to establish his game plan. He wasn't able to press Adesanya against the cage, and the times he was able to, Adesanya was able to spin away from it or get away from it, use underhooks to push Tavares off of him. He never really played the grappling game either. He kind of he always escaped. He always escaped instead of sticking in there and maybe just pressing Brad Tavares against the cage and pressuring him against there. But that wasn't his game. So his game was to stay away, use his superior striking. Not that Brad doesn't have good striking. He was able to land some good jabs. And against a lot of people in this division, Brad Tavares' game would have worked a lot better. But against Isreal Adesanya, and with his pedigree in the striking department and in kickboxing, he was able just to slip right out of every shot that Brad was able to throw at him. He was able to roll with the punches. He was able to establish his distance. He did get warned, I think it was in the first round, Isreal did, about an eye poke or coming at him with his fingers extended. So Herb Dean gave him a warning right away, and as soon after that, Isreal kept his fingers kept his fingers in and didn't really open his hand when he was punching or extending it forward until he was creating separation and he had to push off. That's the only time he started using or opening his hands after that, because he didn't want to risk getting the point taken away. So let's see. Give you guys the striking totals. Isreal Adesanya controlled the fight for... God damn it, UFC. Get your fucking shit together. It says 59-16. That's impossible. So they didn't fight for an hour. So stupid. But, let's see. Round by round. There wasn't a lot in the first round. They were just more establishing position. Brad Tavares trying to come forward, trying to pressure him against the cage. Isreal establishing his distance, his jab. He did dive down for a some kind of ankle pick or trying to like get a sweep of the leg towards the end, where Brad capitalized and stuffed it and got on top and started landing some strikes. Not enough, in my opinion, to win the round. I don't think he won any of the rounds. In my opinion, my scorecard was a unanimous decision in favor of Isreal Adesanya, taking on a very game and very tough Brad Tavares, but it was too much for Tavares. I forgot who called who out. I think they might have called each other out, and they both wanted to fight each other. So this fight was a great fight, and it was awesome to see where Isreal Adesanya is. I'm a big fan of Isreal Adesanya, not so much of Brad Tavares. I've never really been 100 like. I don't hate on Brad, but it's not like I'm rooting for the guy. I'm usually never rooting for him, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not wanting to see him lose or anything, but in this case I was, because I was a fan of Isreal, and I wanted to see what he had, and it was very telling. He was able to stuff a lot of the situations against the cage. He was able to get up from the floor. And he was very effectively landing his strikes, landing his kicks to the body. I believe it was like 3 times that he hurt Brad Tavares. I know it was in the first. He got him with a body kick that you could see him kind of fold up a little bit, not too much, but then he recovered right away. Brad Tavares is a tough dude, man. I give it to him. I'll give that to him, man. Isreal Adesanya threw everything at him and was never really able to get him out of there. He had some opportunities, but it just wasn't enough. Brad Tavares survived and was able to was able to go to the decision. Let's see. Oh, shit. Let me adjust this shit real quick. Sorry. Yeah, so Isreal Adesanya outstruck Brad Tavares 127 to 46 in total strikes. In significant strikes, he landed 119 to Brad Tavares' 40. This is overall. Brad Tavares was able to land one takedown. Isreal got up right away, and there was one submission attempt by Isreal as well. Other than that, there was nothing really that Brad did that really affected Israel's game. Besides being tough and besides not being able to get taken out of there. But it was awesome to see. Isreal Adesanya called out the winner of Uriah Hall and Borrachino. He said he wanted that fight. I don't know if he'll get it. I think he talked to Dana, and Dana, I don't think he wants that right away. Not saying that he necessarily doesn't want it, just it's a little bit too soon for it. But, yeah, awesome fight. My buddy Toucan came over. We were watching it on Friday. I think he was eating tacos. Or was that Saturday? I don't know. I don't know what he was. It might have been Saturday. Yeah, but he came over. We got to watch all these fights and got to check out some of the new fighters coming into the UFC, which I'll go over right now. Let's see. So in the co-main event, was that the co-main event? No. In the co-main event, it was Michael Trizano versus Joe Giannetti. This fight was a lackluster performance on both of these guys. Trizano outstruck Giannetti 86 to 61. In the significant strike department, he got him 42 to 29, and Giannetti was able to get one takedown, and Trizano one submission attempt. This fight was really boring. They even wound up in it wasn't even a north-south position. They were almost like, I don't know, they were like crotch to crotch, but almost in facing opposite positions, and their legs were interlocked like this. It was really weird. It wasn't a position that you see a lot, and they were kind of just punching each other in the thigh and in the butt, and nothing really exciting about this fight. Michael Trizano gets a contract to go into the UFC, but now he gets to prove himself there, so we'll get to see him there. Just went to decision. Was there a fourth round? Where's the show? No, there's only 3. Yeah, but we had Trizano, a new member of the UFC, gets a contract. Then we had Jay Cusinilio versus Brad Katona. Brad Katona trains out of SBG. I forgot where Jay trains out of. But it was complete domination by Brad Katona. Taking him down, beating him up, outstriking him anywhere and everywhere. Outstruck him 117 to 18, actually. So over 100. Nope, I'm wrong. 99 strikes more than Jay. And not as many significant strikes. He landed 71 to 14. Got 2 takedowns. Ultimately wound up getting the decision win. A lot better of a fight, especially for him in terms of the co-main event. But Katona gets a UFC contract and a very good win. Then we had Alex Caceres versus Martin Bravo. Caceres being a tough veteran. By tough veteran, I mean an Ultimate Fighter veteran. He was on there. He's been fighting in the UFC for a while, but he's always up and down. I think the reason he's never been cut is because he was on the Ultimate Fighter, so they wouldn't necessarily want to cut one of their own. And he always seems to pick up a win somehow. After like 2 losses, he'll get together like a win or 2, string together 2 wins, maybe stay in the UFC a little bit more, get 3 losses, and then pick up another win. He's really streaky, so he beat Martin Bravo by decision. I agree with the decision. He just I don't know, he just looked better than Martin Bravo. Martin Bravo was trying to come forward. He got 3 takedowns on him, but didn't really do a lot with him. And I think what wound up happening is that Caceres took over second and third round, and Martin Bravo wasn't able to do anything after that. He landed his 2 takedowns in the first round, and that's when he outstruck him. But Caceres was still in there and kind of stuck it out, as opposed to Martin Bravo kind of got tired, moving on in the fight. Even though he looked in better shape than he usually did, opposed to his other fights. He was always flabby in his other fights. This time he came in cut with like a 6-pack. I don't know where his conditioning was, but wasn't there. And then we had Roxanne Modafferi versus Barb Hanchek. Roxanne kind of just took Barb down, controlled her, was landing elbows on top. Nothing too heavy, nothing too crazy, but it was just Barb not knowing how to defend herself and not wanting to give up her back or give up position. Winds up losing in the second round. Roxanne picks up her first UFC win ever, so good for her. Let's see. Who else? Alessio Di Chirico versus Julian Marquez. Marquez, the Cuban Missile Crisis, loses a split decision to Alessio Di Chirico. This was a really good fight. It was really back and forth, landing heavy shots on each other. But I thought Julian should have gotten the nod in this fight. He didn't. The Cuban Missile Crisis did not get the nod. Di Chirico wins by unanimous decision or split decision, I forget. But he did outstrike him and land more takedowns. I just thought Julian Marquez packed it on heavier towards the later rounds, but that wasn't the case in the judges' eyes. I could be wrong. It was a good fight, close fight. I just thought Di Chirico was moving back a lot more, and Julian was pressing forward. But that's how they saw it. In the AFS1 prelims, we had Montana De La Rosa versus Rachel Ostovich. They were going back and forth, but ultimately, Montana De La Rosa wins by submission. I think it was an armbar. I forget what it was. But these two girls were freaking hot, both of them. Rachel Ostovich, I'd seen her before, and that's why she gets notoriety, because she's super hot. Montana De La Rosa is pretty hot too, so. And they're good fighters, But Montana De La Rosa gets to win by submission. And then we had Luis Pena. Luis Pena is, I think his name is Violent Bob Ross. If you guys don't know who Bob Ross is, he's the guy that paints. This guy does look like Bob Ross. He's got a fro, he's got a beard. And he's got a personality too, so he picks up a submission win over Richie Smolin. So look out for Luis Pena, Violent Bob Ross. Let's see, any other fights on this card that I need to talk about? No, that was it. There was some more fights on there, but there was a lot of new fighters trying to make their way into the UFC. I'll keep an eye out to see if any of them catch my eye in coming fights, but we'll see. So that was the ultimate finale. Brad Tavares versus Isreal Adesanya. Badass fight. I definitely go check it out. I just watched it. Isreal Adesanya does not like the comparison, but he's very John Jones-esque with the measuring of the hand, the extension of the arm to measure his distance. I guess now less with the eye poking, because he was told to close his fingers and he was obliging, so. But his striking style is very John Jones-esque. He does not have the wrestling. He's working on the wrestling right now, but he's got some pretty good defense. To be able to stuff a guy like Tavares is pretty impressive. And then on Saturday, that was Friday, and then on Saturday we had UFC 226. Stipe Miocic defending his World Heavyweight Championship against the Light Heavyweight Champion, Daniel DC Cormier. I don't have to tell you guys. You guys probably know by now. I've been a DC fan forever, since Strikeforce. I've been watching him since then. I thought he was going to be the one to dethrone Jon Jones. That was not the case. Second time around, I thought DC was going to lose that one just by the performance that he had against Jon Jones in the first fight. But DC's been able to take out anyone and everyone else not named Jon Jones at heavyweight and light heavyweight, and he's done it in devastating fashion. Maybe not against Anderson Silva, but Anderson Silva was really short notice, so he had to play it safe, in my opinion. But he gets an opportunity at what Jon Jones wanted to do. Jon Jones wanted to have a tune-up fight versus Brock Lesnar after his fight against DC. When he reclaimed his title back, he called out Brock Lesnar. And everyone was super excited about that fight because everyone thought it was going to be made. Turns out Jon Jones tested for tainted substance or a banned substance. He claims it was a tainted supplement. We're still waiting on the results of that. Melky said any day now, but that's what he's been saying for a while now, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. So in the process of waiting, they decided. They didn't decide. They gave DC his belt back, and I forget who he defended it against. Ozdemir. I think he took out Ozdemir to reclaim his title, or to defend his title, because they gave it back to him because Jon Jones had tested positive for steroids. So nothing is really figured out with this Jon Jones thing. There's really no competitors at 205 for him that he hasn't beaten already that are interesting. So they offered him Stipe, or they offered Stipe DC, whatever the case is, because at heavyweight there kind of is a logjam. Stipe's been able to take out everyone, knock out everyone at that weight class. So sorry, not a logjam, just there's no challenger at that division. So Stipe needed a dance partner. Daniel Cormier was more than happy to oblige, and well, they both needed a dance partner. So they both agreed to it for Stipe's title. So DC moves up to try to claim 2 belts. First man ever to claim the light heavyweight championship and the heavyweight championship. Second man to be champ. First one to do it was Conor McGregor himself, having the featherweight championship and the lightweight championship at the same time. He hasn't defended him. He's had him for a while. DC has defended his lightweight championship a couple times. Not a couple, multiple times against different people. And now he's got the world heavyweight championship. DC beat Stipe Miocic in a very, very shocking manner. I thought he was going to win by decision. DC comes out and knocks out Stipe Miocic in 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the first round. Puts him to sleep with a right hook after disengaging from the clinch. They were clinched up. They disengaged. DC lands a right hook that right on the spot drops Miocic. DC comes forward and dives on him. Lands, I think it's like 4 heavy punches right on the chin. Stipe's clearly out. The ref, I think Herb Dean, comes in and stops the fight. No surprise there that he stopped the fight. But so I had DC winning. I just thought he was going to have to do it by decision. I thought it was going to be 5 rounds, hard fought. And it was a hard fought first round. I thought DC was losing. He was being controlled against the cage. He was receiving a lot of damage. But what gave me hope, and not hope, but what I saw when I was picking up from the fight was, yeah, Miocic was landing and he was pressing him against the cage, but DC was kind of just eating those punches. And then once DC started landing his punches on Stipe, you could clearly see that DC was more effective when landing than Stipe was when he was landing. In my opinion, Stipe was winning the fight, but just by volume and by pressuring him against the cage. There wasn't a lot of that. DC put a stop to that right away. And then once they clinched up, disengaged, landed a short right, super powerful short right, and then followed it up with 4 strikes on the floor. Crowning himself the champ. DC standing for double champ now. And he deserves it. He deserves it. And he said it himself. It's good to have a title disassociated from John Jones in every which way. John Jones has never fought at heavyweight. John Jones isn't a heavyweight. He's never moved up. DC moved down to light heavyweight, got the belt, moved back up, and now he's the heavyweight champion, light heavyweight champion. And I was super happy. I was super happy for him. I've been rooting for him forever. I thought he was going to beat John Jones, and he didn't. And not that he let me down. It's just John Jones is a tall task. He's probably John Jones, when it's all said and done, should be the GOAT. Because of his talent, because of his physical stature, and because of his ableness to adapt and learn the game so easily. The only person that's going to stop John Jones from doing that is John Jones. DC's not going to stop him from doing that, because I don't think DC is going to be able to ever beat him, even at heavyweight. And I don't think they fight again. I don't think John Jones comes back before DC retires next March. I think DC beats Brock. And before that, DC might have to face either a lightweight or a heavyweight. But I think DC picks up 2 more wins, rakes up a little cash, and retires. And I don't think he gets to face John Jones for the 3rd time to try to vindicate himself. And I'm not saying that he doesn't want to. I'm saying he doesn't need to at this point. He beat John Jones in doing what John Jones wanted to do. He did it first, and he showed that he had the balls to move. Well, he was already a heavyweight, and he moved down and then moved back up. So he showed that, and I'm not saying that John Jones is scared. It's just he hadn't done it because he said it himself, inexperience, and once he moved up, he was going to have to stay up there. DC wasn't with any of that bullshit. DC moved down, moved up, and he's a 2-division champion. And I don't think I'd ever be able to consider DC the GOAT just because of those losses to John Jones. The only way DC would, in my opinion, move past that is if in any way John Jones keeps on getting in his own way. If he keeps on fucking up his own career and doesn't let himself break the records that he can break, win the championships that he can win, defend the belt as many times as he can in both divisions at the same time, I think Jones is the GOAT, because I think he has the potential of doing that. It's up to him to do it, and if he can't do it, then it's because he stops himself with the addictions he has to partying, to cocaine, to all that stuff, to, I don't know, to getting in his own way. John Jones, it would be ridiculous right now if he didn't get suspended even the first time. Because how long before that would he have moved up to heavyweight? Who knows? At this point, it doesn't matter because DC is the one to do it. DC is the one able to conquer the divisions with the biggest weight gaps. That's one thing, too. Those divisions have the craziest weight gap. 205 and then 225 to 265. That's ridiculous. And DC came in heavier than Stipe. Stipe was a lot bigger, too, but Daniel knows how to carry that weight. He knows how to throw that weight around. He knows how his body works. He's a wrestler, man, and a high-level wrestler. I'm not saying that Stipe isn't a good wrestler, but there's levels to this stuff. And DC said it himself. He was kind of adapting to the situation. He was feeling out Stipe, seeing how he was. And he did take some damage, but he said it himself, those punches weren't like anything he hasn't felt before. He said he's gotten hit by Rumble. He's gotten outboxed by Gustafsson. He said this wasn't anything new. He said he was just feeling it out in the first the first round, and then he was able to land that short right hook off the clinch. Stipe didn't go for I think it was a right underhook to trap DC's. No, it was a left underhook to trap DC's right arm. He didn't do that. So he gets caught, gets his lights put out. And then the aftermath happened. The aftermath between DC and his special guest. Brock Lesnar showed up to the arena. And he was at Kate's side. DC asked Joe Rogan for the mic. And he begins to cut a promo, calling Brock Lesnar into the ring. Brock Lesnar comes in and shoves the shit out of DC, almost knocking him over. We have Rosando, I forget his last name, DC's striking coach, come in and try to push Brock. Brock barely moves. And it's hilarious because you see the love that the coaches have for DC. This guy was like half the size of Brock, and he was defending his boy DC, because this guy was fucking, he came in and shoved the shit out of him like nothing. You know, it's supposed to be like some WWE promo. And I guess they do really shove each other, knock each other down and shit like that. But this was supposed to be a little bit more professional. Them just kind of facing off and kind of talking shit to each other. Brock took it to a whole nother level. DC got in his little shove, a little haha, I shoved you back when the people were in between them. Nothing really much. It was more funny than anything. But that should be DC's next fight. They're saying it's going to be DC's next fight. It's going to be him versus Brock Lesnar, which I am not against. It's going to be awesome. Around the time that Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar fought, I remember it was like my freshman year of U of I. I remember seeing the promos at the bars. I remember seeing it everywhere. I remember the blow up of it. And I remember how excited I was because I was a WWE fan and I was getting into UFC more and more at that point. I think I had seen some pay-per-views. I had seen Brock versus wait, was this? I don't know if it was the first Mir fight or the second Mir. I think that was the first Mir fight, actually. Then after that, I got to see Brock versus Heath Herring. Brock versus Mir 2. Brock versus Shane Carwin. I've always been a Brock fan because I was a WWE fan. So my fandom just carried over from sport to sport. And I wanted to see him succeed, and he did succeed. He became heavyweight champion, defended it, and beat some very talented heavyweights. And now he gets the opportunity to claim the title from DC, which is a very small heavyweight, but that can... So it's funny, Brock got beat by Cain Velasquez, and DC is the guy that helps Cain Velasquez with his training. So Daniel Cormier is kind of like a little mimic of Cain Velasquez in the way that he fights, in the way that he strikes, in the way that he pressures you, in the way that he wrestles. It's very similar. So I don't know who I'm gonna. I'm definitely rooting for DC. I've been in DC's corner the whole time. Not that I haven't been a Brock fan the whole time, but I've seen DC since Strikeforce, and I've been rooting for the guy forever. And I like Brock, but we've seen how they get to Brock, and I think DC's going to be able to get to Brock, counter his wrestling with his own wrestling, and he's definitely going to outstrike Brock. So that's my early prediction if that fight ever gets made. I don't know if that fight gets made, though. We'll see. We will see. But super impressive win for DC. DC! I forget whose quote I saw, but someone put... Somewhere out there, Thug Rose is yelling DC, 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 because DC was yelling Thug Rose when she knocked out Joanna. So that was pretty funny. Co-main event: Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis, in what was probably one of the most boring fights of all time. I read a very telling tweet before this. Someone tweeted, I forget who was it. It might have been Dave Meltzer. He tweeted, I gassed out just thinking about Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis. Not saying that these guys gassed out. It's just that they did not fight. Derek Lewis said his back was still... it was acting up during this fight, so he couldn't really engage and do what he wanted to. And Francis Ngannou even said it himself that he was gun-shy from the Miocic fight, so he wasn't able to do anything It was all in his head. And Derek Lewis was able to do just enough to squeak out a victory. He was able to land some good kicks. No takedowns were landed. It was mostly them looking at each other. Even Herb Dean, not yelled at them, but told them, you guys got to fight. You guys got to make it happen yourselves. But Derek Lewis gets the win. He even says it himself. He doesn't deserve a title shot after that victory. And DC said that he wants a big name. So that wouldn't constitute as a big fight for DC at heavyweight now that he's champion. But we should get Brock Lesnar versus DC anyway. So there's not much on that fight. It was a really boring fight. I wouldn't suggest watching it. It didn't do anything. Then we had Paul Felder versus Mike Perry. This was a very, very awesome fight. Both guys were throwing everything at each other, elbows. They were just coming forward like two pit bulls. Paul Felder moving up to 170 because his opponent dropped out. Or no, Mike Perry's opponent dropped out. They gave Paul Felder's opponent away. I think it was big tall guy at 155. I forget his name. Whatever. So they took Paul Felder's opponent away. So then they threw him at Mike Perry because Mike Perry lost his guy, I think, too. There was a lot of moving around, but they made it happen. They got us a fight on short notice. Paul Felder versus Mike Perry. I like both of the guys' fighting style. They both come at each other. I thought Felder was going to play it safe, and he did. He tried to use the distance. He backed up a lot, but he was also very vicious throwing elbows. But it just wasn't enough against the stronger, heavy hitting Mike Perry. I think he was just hitting a little bit harder and backing up Paul Felder more. He had 2 takedowns, and he played it smart to get out a decision. So Paul Felder drops one to Mike Perry. Mike Perry picks up a much-needed victory. I think that's going to do much bad for Paul Felder. He took that fight on short notice, and he moved up to 170 because he wanted to fight. So not bad. And then we had, in the rebooked fight of Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis, rebooked because of the Conor McGregor dolly throwing incident where he cut Michael Chiesa with some glass. So they rebooked it for this night. I thought Michael Chiesa was going to win just because he was the bigger man, and he is very skilled. He's got good jiu-jitsu and good striking. He had trouble making weight. I think he had a broken foot. It says the broken foot wasn't an issue, but clearly was. He couldn't make weight, and he got beat. He got beat very easily. That could have been either Anthony's back to the old Anthony, or Chiesa was hurt because of the foot break, and he wasn't able to make weight and condition himself right. But this was like 4 days out, I think, that he broke his foot. But still, a broken foot's a broken foot. You're not the same. Anthony Pettis was able to land a armbar / triangle. I think it was more of an armbar. Towards the end of the second round, Anthony Pettis was doing a lot of what I thought Chiesa was going to do to him. I thought Chiesa was going to push him against the cage, control him against the cage, being able to push Anthony back. But Anthony seemed to be the one to do it. Chiesa was landing some takedowns, though. And Anthony took advantage and got a submission win. Gets a triangle in. Eventually, they lean over to the side, and he turns it into an armbar. Beautiful transition. Let's see. We'll go over this real quick. Disappointing. I had Gokhan Saki I had him winning versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. Khalil showed everyone what he was about, knocking out Gokhan Saki, hurting him, and then following him up. 3:23 of the first round. There wasn't really a lot. It's Gokhan coming forward, and he ate a shot and got dropped. Khalil jumped on it and did not let up. Uriah Hall versus Paulo Costa. These guys came in throwing bombs. They were throwing everything at each other. And I think Paulo Costa dropped him with a straight left. Or it might have been an uppercut. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I think it was a left, though. Dropped Hall down, and that was it. Hall was just, he was looking at the canvas. But Hall was eating some shots earlier on. It's just he was coming forward at Paulo, and Paulo caught him perfectly right in the chin, dropped him. And they pick up a performance of the night. Awesome fight by both guys, but Paulo was able to land the shot. He moves on. I forget who he called out. He called out a big name at 185. Don't think it was Jacare. He called out Weidman. Yeah, he called out Weidman. Then we had Rafael Assunção, number 3 versus number 11, Rob Font. Clear and decisive victory for Rafael Assunção. Rob Font was outmatched. Just got taken down, got outstruck. Just got outclassed pretty much. We need some more guys at 135 for Assunção. Let's see who. I don't know if he's faced Marias, but he was asking for a title shot. He's like, I'm not the guy to talk shit. He's like, what do you want me to do? Talk shit, do this, do that, because I'm not gonna do it. He's like, I just want my fight for the title, Dana. So, yeah. Lando Veneta versus Drakkar Klose. Close fight. Drakkar Klose gets the victory. I think he was just pushing Lando back a lot more. They were both landing. He did outstrike Lando significantly and total strikes. They both got a takedown, but Drakkar Klose, impressive victory over Lando Veneta. I thought Lando was going to win. Curtis Melander versus Max Griffin. I had Max Griffin. Once I saw them face to face, I knew I was wrong. Curtis Melander, I had seen him once, but it didn't get stuck in my head. He's the guy that knocked out Thiago Alves, but he's huge. He's a huge 170 pounder. Clearly outsized Max Griffin, and he gets the victory over Max Griffin. He's clearly landing the more significant shots, controlling the pace of the fight over Max. And Max was, to Max's credit, he kept on coming forward and didn't stop. He was fighting the whole time. So, yeah. Dan Hooker versus Gilbert Burns. Dan Hooker, 4th stoppage victory in a row. Gets the TKO over Gilbert Burns. I don't know, I forget where I heard that Gilbert Burns was just he cut too much weight, and he's not able to recover. Dan Hooker has made the move up from 145 to back to 155, where he's able to replenish, and he just dropped Gilbert Burns twice. He was just landing good shots, and was able to stop Gilbert. Gilbert was I forget who he'd beaten too, but he dropped him in the last fight too. So Gilbert came off of an impressive win, but not enough for Hooker, and Hooker's looking real nice with 4 wins. Let's see. Jamie Moyle versus Emily Nightmare. It was a decision win for Emily. She just outstruck Moyle. Nothing really crazy. The only thing I really take away from this fight was at the end where she said, "Fuck you, Vinny Magalhaes," because Magalhaes cornered Jamie Moyle instead of cornering her. So impressive win by Whitmire. We'll see who she gets next. Yeah, but that was the card for UFC 226. What an impressive win for DC. Super happy for the guy. I've always been a big fan. And he finally got what he deserved. He finally picks up double champ status, picks up the heavyweight belt, has the light heavyweight belt. He's retiring next March in 2019. So the guy's doing great. And he's fighting Brock Lesnar, so he's going to make some money. So, yeah. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks a lot for joining me. Hit that like button. Subscribe. And again, thanks a lot for joining me. I am your host, Rafael Chaidez of the Full Heel Podcast. And All I wanna do is zoom, 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 and your boom, boom.
Your chances thin like the mustache of Puerto Ricans. Shooting guns with my daughter on the weekend. Smoke the butter, same color as the weekend. Stashed under the stole of the snake.